Hey, podcast friends. This is Dr. Steve Hewlett with the podcast Simple Healthy Choices for Weight Loss, where every week we help people who have realized that as their health has been declining over the years, the number of medications they are being prescribed is increasing. We want to help you reverse this health path so you can live the vibrant, pain-free, and hopefully medication-free life you deserve to live. If you'd like even more information on this topic, you can go to Amazon or Audible and pick up my book, Your Plate is Your Fate. And if you think my book helps you on your new health path, please tell your friends and leave a review where you purchased it. Hey, welcome back, podcast friends. In today's episode, we are going to be talking about mindful eating and the importance of your thoughts. And we've already talked about this in several of our episodes, and I just want to say it again. It's so important to realize that all of our thoughts are what create our feelings, and it's our feelings that create our actions, and it's the actions that we do that are going to determine the results of our life. And to start this off, I ran across a poem that I don't even know who wrote this, but I thought it was pretty fitting. So I'm just going to start this off with a poem to let you know how important your thoughts are. It says, if you think you are beaten, you are. If you think you dare not, you don't. If you like to win, but you think you can't, it's almost certain you won't. If you think you'll lose, you're lost. For out in the world we find success begins with a fellow's will. It's all in the state of mind. If you think you are outclassed, you are. You've got to think high to rise. You've got to be sure of yourself before you can ever win a prize. Life's battles don't always go to the stronger or faster man, but sooner or later, the man who wins is the man who thinks he can.
Yeah. So when Steve, brought up that poem, it's like, that's perfect for what we're wanting to talk about today. And so I think we can probably end it right now.
Yeah. That's all we need to do. Change your thoughts.
There you go.
Change your thoughts, change your life.
So whenever we are wanting, so we want to keep this around weight loss. And so when you're wanting to change, just like what this poem says, well, we need to be mindful, just like the name of the podcast. And we want to change our thoughts. That's the very first thing. So if you decide you want to lose weight, so there's that word decide. So you have to make a decision. And it's really easy at the beginning to make a decision, which we've talked about before, because we decide, we're excited. Our mind is definitely on board for this decision. And then things start happening, and then our mind changes, and our mind wants to go back and maybe start telling some stories that we like to tell ourselves, like maybe that this is going to be hard. It's already hard. I can't do this. I haven't done it in the past. What makes me think I can do it now? Maybe you think I'm missing out. Like all my friends are going and having Mexican food tonight and margaritas, and it's not on my plan. Or maybe you're thinking just because you can't lose the weight or you haven't in the past doesn't mean you can't in the future, because that's, again, our thoughts that we're thinking about. So, and especially this is a big one. So if you've tried everything, I have tried everything, every way to lose weight, and I can't. Well, you probably haven't tried everything, because people do lose weight, and it's their beliefs and it's their thoughts that help them to lose that weight.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the saying, you can have success or you can have excuses, but you cannot have both. There's no way you're going to be successful if you're so busy making excuses. If you're always looking at the negative side, anytime somebody says something, you start looking at the negative side instead of the positive side. These are all thoughts. These are all things that you can 100% control. You can control your thoughts. And the biggest thing with thoughts is just because you think something doesn't mean it's right. In fact, chances are if you think something, it probably isn't right. But you can control the path of where you're thinking. Just like putting negative things in your mind. We don't watch things on television that are negative. We don't want to put negative things in our mind. I don't read things. Just like mainstream media, I do not watch the news. My mom, she's 88 years old. She loves the news. She watches it all the time. And she knows that I don't. So almost 100% of the conversations we have always starts off with her saying, well, Steve, I know you don't watch the news, but did you hear about? And it's just, everybody knows I don't want to put negative things in my mind, because it really does affect you. Something easy is like going camping. I never, ever watch camping movies about people who are out camping and there's murderers in the woods. Why would I do that to myself? I mean, chances of that are like nil, or very close to nil. why would I do that? It's going to ruin these wonderful, wonderful trips of going camping and being out in wilderness and nature and seeing all the things that God's done for us. So it's what you choose to put in your mind is so, so important. And it's kind of like the wolves. If you've ever heard of the wolves, you have thoughts in your head all the time. Think of this as two wolves inside your body. And I know a lot of you probably heard this before, but you have one wolf that is negative. It's wanting there. It's always wanting you to make negatives, telling you can't do this, you can't do that. And then you have a positive wolf that says, yes, you can do this. You just have to make goals, make steps, figure this out. You can do it. And it's like, well, which wolf wins? Is it the negative one or the positive one? It's the wolf that you feed the most, obviously. So if you just feed the positive things, the positive wolf, it will win out. And as soon as you start getting this way of thinking, when things come up, instead of automatically thinking something's negative about it, think positive. If it's negative, then all that is now you got to think a way of getting out of it. I can do this. It's just a hurdle. It's not that big a deal. Keep your mind focused on your future, on the things you want. Don't let your past ruin it and tell you you've never done it before, you can't do it again. That's how you're really going to mess yourself up and not being able to enjoy the wonderful life you have. And we won't go a lot of this. We actually talked about this in episode 46. Are your thoughts keeping you unhealthy? So you can go back and listen to that because we don't want to waste a lot of time on this, but just we really want you to realize anytime you make any major change in your life, the first thing that you change is your mind. You have to change your thoughts. You have to think differently about how you look at these things.
And that's not easy because I don't know. I've heard so many different statistics about how many thoughts we have in a day, and they're exactly the same thoughts every single day. So you just have to decide you want to change your thoughts. And so you can be thinking a thought and you're like, oh, I don't want to think that anymore. So you can change your thought. Because remember, our brains don't like to change. And it doesn't matter how unhealthy or whatever, or healthy or whatever's going on in your life, your brain is happy. So if you've been living this way a certain amount of weeks, years, decades, your brain is very happy. Even if you are extremely obese, your brain's like, but we're really happy this way. We don't need to change anything because this feels comfortable and we know what's coming and we know what's happening. So that's when you're like, that is one of the things that we do talk about is planning ahead, because your brain does like to plan. And it's like, oh, this is a really good idea. Let's plan. That's why at the beginning of your, you decide you're going to lose weight. You're like, okay, well, we can do this. Well, then all of a sudden things start happening and your brain is like, but we really want to go out and have some chips and salsa.
Yeah. See, I told you so. See, you couldn't stick to your goals. That's what your brain says. Don't listen to that.
Yeah. You are not capable of doing that. And then you believe it. Because in your past, this has happened. And so you truly believe that is your fate. That's your destiny. And it doesn't have to be that way, because you can just change your mind and you can just prove to your brain it's wrong.
Right. And like she said, like my wonderful wife, Theresa, said, that's what you do. Even though your brain's happy, that doesn't mean you're happy. That doesn't mean you like your circumstances. It just means it's going to make it even that much harder for you to change your circumstances. But I guarantee when you change your mind, you change your thoughts, you make goals, you set your steps towards your goals. When you start accomplishing those, all of a sudden you can start telling yourself, look, I did it. I thought I could change. I made a change. I made a goal. I made a step. I did it. Now I think I can do another. And that's how you want to get the momentum going. So don't make these outrageous goals. Just do one step at a time. Just focus on one step at a time. And that goes to, so now what you do, now you've decided you want to do something. You want to lose the weight. You're going to do it or get healthy. This isn't all about weight loss. Weight loss is definitely part of the path towards extreme unhealthiness. So this is about health, but still people like to look at the weight loss. So think of this. Once you have that in mind, you got to remember that as you start going through the change, it's that transition that's the hardest thing for people. Your brain likes the way you were, but your thoughts and how you want to be somewhere else. And that little transition period, realize you're in the transition period. That's the hardest time. That's when you really, really need to focus on what's my very next step. And when it comes to food, this is the thought that you should think every single time you put a piece of food in your mouth. Every single time you put a piece of food in your mouth, you should be thinking, is this taking me towards my weight loss goal or away from my weight loss goal? And if you don't know what takes you towards or away, you can listen to all the other podcasts we talk about, because we talk about it in every one of them.
Right. Yeah. So, and then another thing you can think is, because I know that I struggled this probably, in the beginning when we first started, even just years ago, just being more conscious of, because, I was always the type of person that could eat whatever I wanted. And then it came to a point, my late 20s, is like, oh, I'm gaining a little bit of weight. And then I had children. So then it was like, okay, we really need to pay attention to what we're doing. And so when we started doing that, so we were very strict. We did a 12-week program, very strict with it. I mean, we followed the rules exactly like it said to do it.
We did.
So then it's like, but I think how I messed up a little bit was in the back of my mind, I kept thinking, but I'm missing out. I'm missing out on, I always bring up chips and salsa. so it's like, I'm missing out. It's like, how can I eat Mexican food the rest of my life without chips and salsa? Well, you actually can. So we do it all the time now, but I'm not saying, now some people can. Like Steve is the type of person to be like, oh, I'm not doing that anymore, so I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm a little bit more on the gradual side. So it's really been recent in the past year or so that I've been like, okay, I don't have to have chips. We do the Mexican bowls and you don't even miss the chip. I mean, you really don't. It's
and you get rid of the shells, get rid of the rice, get rid of all the carbohydrates on there. We just get fajitas and share a big fajita thing. It's all just meat and vegetables.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't eat the shells.
We get the guac, the sour cream. Anyway, so I'm just saying for some people, it's very quick. It can happen super fast. Some people, it's a process and it takes a little bit of time. But the main thing we were wanting to talk about, or at least I think you were, it's like you get to do these things. It's like I get to eat this way versus I have to eat this way. I mean, it's so different if you think about it. It's like, oh, I get to take care of myself. I get to take care of my body.
And we do that. We do that with a lot of things. Anytime, and I really do. Anytime I hear somebody say, oh, I've got to go here, or I've got to go there. It's like, you don't got to do anything. You get to do that. You have your, for most of, you have your health, you have your eyes, you have your ears, you have your arms, your legs, you have the will, you have your brain to be able to think, you can move. I mean, there's so many things that we should be blessed for and realize you get to do all these things. You are so lucky. There are so many people who are bedfast, who are so unhealthy they can't even walk across a floor. You get to do so many more things that a lot of people can't do. So the more you realize how blessed you are, the easier it's going to be for you to make these kinds of changes. So anytime I hear somebody say, I have to, I always say, no, you get to. And just think like choose. If you want to change something, don't say, oh, I have to do this, or I must do this. It's like, no, I choose to. I choose to do this. Just changing that word in your thoughts automatically gives yourself power. I choose to do this. This is my choice, and I'm going with it. And just that thought truly empowers you a lot more to do things. I choose what I'm putting in my mouth. There's so many negative things around us. There's so many horrible, dangerous chemicals that are in everything, all your cosmetics, shampoos, hair, the air, the grass, the food. There are toxins everywhere, but you just can't really do anything about it. I mean, you could totally move somewhere else. I mean, there's things you can do depending on how important it is to you. However, if you know that, and you know that there's toxins everywhere, the one toxin in the one place that you have 100% control is the toxins that you put in your mouth. And if you are eating man-made food, that means everything in box, bottle, bag, can, fast food restaurants, bread, anything you get in the center aisles of grocery stores. If you're doing that, you are putting toxins in your body constantly. So you can't do that and then complain because, oh man, my joints I'm foggy thinking, I'm getting obese, I'm on all these medications. You chose to put it in your mouth. Now, sometimes you may not realize you're making a choice. And that's what we're wanting to do with these podcasts. By listening to these podcasts, I want people to realize this is a choice. What you put in your mouth is a choice, 100% your choice. Once you realize you're making a choice, now the choice is up to you. Which way do you go? Because before, when you didn't know your choice, you're just kind of going through life. But once you figure out there's a choice, there's a fork in the road, now choose. So once you know that you can choose healthy foods and you can get off the medications, you could reverse your type 2 diabetes, you can reverse your obesity, you can reverse your blood pressure, you can get off so many medications just by the food that you eat. Once you know that and you still choose to eat that same food, now that's a problem you got to deal with again. And that's where you need to figure out your why. And your why is going to be so important.
Right. And then when you believe it, so that's also the key. choosing to do it and then believing that it's possible.
Mm-hmm.
So then when you believe it, you start thinking differently. So now you want to choose to do those things, and then you will start changing. One of the things we had talked about was when you do, let's just say you're a smoker. Well, you're probably, some things are going to change in your life when you quit smoking, or when you quit drinking. Same thing with eating. You need to realize, I don't know, it depends. Like maybe you won't be hanging out with those friends anymore that you have that are also obese, that usually they get upset if you're trying to change. They want you to stay where they are because they're happy where they are as well,
Right.
or they don't have the right thoughts to think that they can change. But so you may have to change your friends. It doesn't always happen, but it does happen a lot.
It almost surely will. Your friends, just like they say, you are
the sum of the 5 people you hang out with.
The sum of the 5 people that you hang out with the most. Your income's going to be about the same way. Your habits are going to be about the same way. What you do for fun is going to be about the same way. So if you are with people that bring you down, if you're with people that when you tell them that you are trying to get healthy and they're like, why are you doing that? Haven't you tried that before? I mean, they will say all kinds of things. That's the kind of friend that you may want to start eliminating. Okay. And that's not a bad thing. When you start eating healthy, when you start thinking about goals and achieving things and making the most out of your life and thinking, what do I really want to do at the end of my life? And you start going that way, you will find there are other people who are thinking the same way. When you get together with them, now you feed each other. It's like feeding the negative wolf and feeding the positive wolf. You guys start feeding each other and you both help lift each other up. And it is so much more gratifying, so much more. It feels like that is what life's all about, is to be enjoyed. I mean, God put us here to enjoy life, not to sit here and think that everything is strain, a strain and horrible. We want to enjoy life, and that's the way you do it, is you feel good about yourself. You feel good about your friends. You're doing things that you should be doing. You're stopping things you shouldn't be doing. And the friends are everything. Family's going to do it too. Family, you can't just totally get rid of them, but you definitely can limit the amount that you spend with the negative people and increase the amount of time you spend with the positive people. So when you make a major change, realize this isn't just, you're not just losing weight. You are changing your thoughts, your mind, your goals, the people around you, places you go. If there are places are horrible to go to, well, say the center aisles of grocery stores. When you're used to going to places like that and you change your mind and you quit going to those places, it's going to start making it easier. Now that you're out of that transition phase of going from where you were to where you want to be. As you start to get out of that, it's going to be easier and easier and easier. So if it's hard, that just means you're still in the transition phase.
Right. And then, so we're going to say, friends, that could be something that's going to change in your, in this process. Your habits are going to change, obviously. So you're going to be eating different things. You're going to be maybe not going through the drive-through, you're eating out less because you have more control when you're eating at home. And so to realize those habits are going to change. So maybe you're going to go walking after dinner instead of sitting down immediately and watching Netflix, so that'll change. Even if it's just for 10 or 15 minutes, that is a habit. It's a habit to get up from the kitchen table and go sit on your couch versus getting up from the table and putting on your tennis shoes and going for a walk. And it's just real little. It's just 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah,
but it is something that
just move. Just get the stuff that you just ate, whatever has the glucose in it. If you ate any plant-based food, you're going to have glucose in it. So the best thing so that glucose doesn't get turned into fat and stored like it will is to use some up right away. Because if you just eat and sit on the couch or eat and go to bed, now you have all that glucose in your body that you're not using because you're not doing much energy except for your basal metabolism, which is very important, but you're not doing that much energy. And so your body automatically changes all that glucose into triglycerides, into fat, and stores it. So that's what you do when you eat and sit or eat and lay. What you actually did is say, okay, all the food I ate right now, I want you to put that in my fat cells. That's what you're saying. So if you want to change your mind, say, oh, I just ate this and I don't want it all going in my fat cells. Maybe I should get up and move. Maybe I should go walk. Maybe I should do things like this. So it's just a matter of how you think about it. And you've got to know why you're doing it. Why do you want to lose weight? Why do you want to get off medications? Why do you want to stay out of the doctor's offices and the hospitals? I don't know. I've got my reasons why I don't ever want to go there.
Yeah. And so this part that we're talking about is like in the middle of when you've decided you want to do this and some things to think about and that's going to come up, some stumbling blocks or something like that.
Yeah.
So what we teach is how to plan ahead because of our brain. Our brain likes to plan ahead, but it doesn't necessarily want to follow through on those things, especially if it's like last minute, you're tired, you're hungry, and you haven't planned ahead. Your brain's going like, oh, this is what we like to do. And let's just go in through that drive-through. So your brain does, that's what your brain wants to do.
Yeah.
But if you've planned ahead, so you've taken food with you maybe to work, or you've made up, you already know what you're going to eat for that next day, or you've planned out. So we suggest planning the whole week and then every night looking at the next day to see, did that day change? Do we need to change things up a little bit? Oh, we've got that extra practice we have to go to, so planning ahead, and then you don't have to think about it. You don't have to sit there and argue with your brain, because your brain probably will win if you're going to sit there and argue with it. So.
Yeah. Once you realize that anytime you find that your brain is making an excuse for something, that's the time that you're getting ready to do something you probably shouldn't be doing. Right. I mean, and we do. I mean, we make excuses all the time. Yeah, well, I had a meeting today I had to go to I wasn't aware of. I was behind when I got there, blah, 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 However, if you'd planned the night before, none of that would have mattered. It's like, it doesn't matter. You already know as soon as you get home, this is what you're going to eat. And because you already bought it the weekend before, so it's in the refrigerator. It relieves your stressor, because instead of having all this other stress, oh my gosh, now I got to worry about where I'm going to eat. Well, let's just go out to eat. That's fast. Well, then you go out to eat and you think, gosh, I can't believe I did that. And then you start beating yourself up because you shouldn't have done it because of the new changes that you're trying to make in your life. And then you get mad at yourself, and then it's going to be so easy for you. See, I can never do this. I've tried it before, and you fall back forward. So as soon as you realize that your brain is not on the same wavelength as your why, your will, what you want for yourself, change your brain, change your thoughts. You've got to change your thoughts. And planning ahead is so important. That's the old thing, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail, and it is so true. And again, we won't harp on this because we don't want this going too long, but we did talk about this in episode 50 on what are the first steps of your weight loss goals. So we talked a little bit more about this, but it is so important.
Ahead. Yeah, that one's all about planning ahead and things to do to prepare for that. So be sure to go watch that.
And before you can do any of this stuff, plan ahead. Again, realize you have control over your thoughts. If you find that you're thinking something that you shouldn't do, or you start making excuses for why you're doing something you're doing, stop immediately and say, oh, wait, I'm thinking. Or as soon as you say, oh, I've got to do this, think, no, I get to do this. I want to do this. No, I choose to do this. Those are powerful, powerful words. And your brain does take those in. And it does give you a different path to start looking at when you think, I choose to do this. And this is why I choose to do this. When these little stumbling blocks come on, they're not going to be like a brick wall that you can't get around and you got to go back. It's just a stumbling block. And I knew this was going to happen. Therefore, I already have my out. I know what I'm going to do when this happens because I knew it was going to happen. It's kind of like when we were raising our kids. When we were raising our kids, and we went through a thing called Love with Discipline and Logic. And it was really, really neat. But one thing they found out, and there are issues that happen immediately. And you have no control of, you got to think real quick, what am I going to do in this situation? Okay, that's one set of thoughts that you have. However, there's another thing. My child always does this. Every time we do this, he does this. Every time we do this, he does this. So every time something happens, your child does this. And you don't want that to happen. So that's a good thing, because now you can think ahead. Okay, next time I say this and he does this, this is what I'm going to do. So then it almost makes you look forward to when they do what they used to do that irritates you, because now you put your plan into action. And as soon as they do it and they do whatever they're going to do, now use your plan. You can change it. And if it doesn't work, at least okay, that one didn't work, but something else will. The whole thing is, when you plan ahead for these stumbling blocks, you find out they're not always stumbling blocks. I mean, they're just there. And your brain used to like to think that they were really hard to get over when really they weren't. A big one with health is sugar sweetened beverages. Horrible. The worst thing you could possibly put in your mouth are sugar sweetened beverages. Glucose is horrible for your body when you eat it all the time, especially. And remember, glucose is the basic building block of all carbohydrates. All carbohydrates means they come from plants. Anything that grew out of the ground from a seed is a plant. and all plants are carbohydrates. So stay away from plants, stay away from carbohydrates, stay away from glucose. And I'm not saying stay away from fruits and vegetables. You can have that a little bit if you want to. I'm just saying that carbohydrates are glucose. You don't want glucose. And so the worst way you get glucose in your body is in the liquid form. You drink it, it goes immediately in the body, massive amounts. So all your body can do is flip all that into fat and store it. But you think, but I love the taste of whatever sugar sweetened beverage, which means you love the flavor of sugar. Duh. Who doesn't like the flavor of sugar? However, there are those of us who realize sugar is poison. Fructose is poison, which is what's in sugar. So it's very easy for me anymore to say, no, I don't want sugar. If I taste something sweet, I get it out of my mouth because I have already convinced my brain, I've trained my brain to know if I have something sweet in my mouth, that means I'm putting toxins in my body. And that's how I am. Now, will I go and have something sweet every now and then? Every now and then, but it's a treat. And then I'm done. That's the way it is. But if you change your brain, if you can change your brain to sugar sweetened beverages, say, I'm going to get off this. If you have to use diet soda at first or whatever, that's fine. That's a good gateway to health, But when you get really healthy, you won't really be eating the sugar sweetener or artificial sweeteners either, because they still give you that taste of sweet in your mouth, which makes you hungry for more and also raise your insulin levels. So eventually you'll get off of it. But anything that you need to use to make that transition is better. But once you do, you'll find out you start tasting sugar sweetened beverages later and they taste disgusting. And it was all because of the thoughts you had at first and the thoughts you have now.
Right. So another thing you need to think about during this whole time, and especially even if you did plan ahead and you're still kind of wanting to fight something in your brain, like, I would rather have something else. Instead, go back to your why. So we didn't even say that part of it, but you have to have a very strong why. And it doesn't matter what it is, but it has to be strong enough so that when you're sitting there, even though you planned ahead, you're having your steak and vegetables, which is always good, but maybe you really wanted Mexican food, chips and salsa, but you got to go back to your
I see
why.
Mexican in my future.
But maybe, you need to go back to your why. It's like, why am I doing this when I could go out to eat? I could just go through the drive-through or whatever. You got to go back to your why. It's like, why are you doing this?
Right. And I know I've used this example a couple different times in my past podcasts, but I know there's also new people here who haven't heard it. But I think I got this from Tony Robbins. It was so long ago, I don't remember. But just like the man he was obese, he was a father, he tried every weight loss. He tried every single weight loss program there is. There's absolutely no way he could lose weight. I've tried it all. That's what he said. He tried everything, couldn't lose his weight until he found out that his daughter was going into kidney failure. And she actually needed a kidney, and he was a perfect donor. However, come to find out, he was too obese to have surgery. So he couldn't do it. So he wasn't going to be able to save his daughter's life. That was his why. And surprisingly enough, he was able to lose that weight, and he was able to have the surgery and did give a kidney to his daughter, and they both lived fine. True story. I don't know the people, but I do know I think I'm almost positive it's Tony, but that's the why. So you may think that you've tried everything and there's just nothing that works. Just realize that's not true. That is a story you tell. It's an excuse you tell yourself. It is not true. You look at all the people all around that have lost weight just fine. It may be harder for you. You may have to go a different path, but the fact is you can lose weight. You can get off your medications. You can stay out of the medical system, but you have to have the why. Why do you want to do that?
Right. And then when you think, because like we also want to talk about what you focus on grows or it expands. Mm-hmm. And so if you're going back to your why, you're always focused on it, on what you want to do.
It's kind of like the book that came out called The Secret. And the one thing that The Secret kind of missed out on is The Secret was talking about as you think about things and you manifest things, they'll start coming to you. But it's not like they're coming to you like you're a magnet. You just walk down and all these things start piling at you. What the reality is, when you really have a goal and you're thinking about it all the time, and that's why we said, if you find your why, when you find your why, write it down, read it every day, because the more you have that why in front of you, you're going to find that there's stuff all around you that's always been there, But since it wasn't a goal of yours, you never focused on it. And the big common one is the one that people talk about, when you look everywhere for cars, you want to get a new car and you find the perfect car. You think this is wonderful. You buy the car. And then all of a sudden you look around everywhere and you see the exact same cars. Like, I never noticed how many of these cars are on the road. So instead of car, the story that we'd already heard was a red Corvette. You buy a red Corvette, and everywhere once you buy it, all of a sudden you have Corvettes everywhere. So my youngest son, Skylar, he termed this the vet effect. So now anytime we talk about the vet effect, we know what that means. Is like, man, look at all this stuff that was around me the whole time, and I never focused on it because it wasn't part of my goal. It wasn't part of my why, where I was going, what I wanted to do. Vacations, never went on vacation. Now you want to go on vacation. All of a sudden you find out there's vacation ideas all around you. It goes the same way, but it's the same thing with health. You find there is healthy food all over the place that you can eat and totally avoid the unhealthy food. But until you see it, till you have that why, you don't notice it. So you have to be aware of the vet effect. And if the things around you are not taking you where you want to go, change your why, look for other things, because I guarantee God has given us everything that we need to do what we want to do.
Right. And so that's like a great thought to have, is we get to decide our lives. We get to decide our futures. I mean, that's, instead of having life happen to you, you're making your life happen.
Exactly.
And we know things happen all the time. We have all kinds of situations that come up that are not good. Deaths and people getting sick, really like cancers and things. But how do you handle that? You get to decide how you want to handle that. Same thing with diet and trying to lose weight, get off your medications. You get to decide these things. And so that should be a really good thought as well. It's like, no, you actually have control over this, or at least your thoughts about it.
Yeah, like Jim Rohn says. Jim Rohn talking about being in a sailboat. Say you're going to be in a sailboat and you want to go from point A to point B. You can start sailing, and all of a sudden the winds come up. You cannot control the winds. You can't control what they're doing, how fast they're blowing, if they blow at all. You may be stagnant. You can't control the winds, but you can adjust your sails. So that's what you do. Realize that things are going to come at you when you want to make a change. Realize that's happening, and just realize that if something tries to blow you off course, just reset your sails. Don't think, oh my gosh, wind's coming up, I'm going to have to turn around and go back. That makes no sense, especially when you need the winds to go forward. And that's how you do. When you have a stumbling block, when you have something come at you and you work your way through that and you continue on the path where you want, you feel so much better about yourself. You feel stronger. And even more important, once you go across that hurdle and go on towards your life, as you see other people coming behind you that want to follow in your footsteps and they come to that hurdle, you got the answer. Oh, I had that hurdle. This is what I did. And you can help them over. And all of a sudden, everybody starts helping everybody to be better. So when something bad happens to you, that doesn't mean it's bad. That whether it's good or bad is all how you think about it. You can always think about bad things that happen to you. What is the good thing? What was I supposed to learn from this? Because I guarantee God's going to put things in front of you and he wants you to work your way through it. If you don't, he will present that again. It may be that week, it may be that year, it may be the next month, whatever, but he'll present that to you again. And if you continue to make the same wrong mistakes, he'll continue to do it, give you that same thing. But once you pass it, now you get to go on, and chances are you're going to have something else. But now stumbling blocks are they're just something that, try to think it through the ones you want so you know how to deal with it. But don't let it knock you off course. Don't make it go all the way back to where you began. That's the last thing you want to do. And we talked about this also in episode 52 called Sticking to Your Weight Loss Goal. So episode 52 will talk about this. And the biggest thing also, this is a gift that you're giving your future self. And I think about that all the time. Anytime I do something, I say, I'm going to be so glad I did this. In a week from now, I'm going to be so glad I did this. This podcast is a perfect example. We're going to be so good. We had a lot of stuff going on, but we really want to do a podcast today. So just whenever we could squeeze it in, we put a little podcast together, and now we came and did it. When we're done, we're going to go, good. That was another podcast done, and it's a gift you give yourself. And I give my gifts all the time. I always do something like, oh, I'm going to be so glad I did this in the future. Yeah. And that's how I want you to do. Continuously give yourself gifts. Give your future self gifts of things that you start right now, your changes that you make in your life right now, and you'll be happy with yourself. You'll be happy that you did, and you'll continue to want to do it more and to help other people do the same.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So were you going to do
So,
we're going to wrap it up?
And we're going to wrap it up. I know this is crazy, but it's not. I mean, it goes along the same line. Don't be focusing your mind on negative things. Realize there are things that you cannot change. Don't waste your worries on that. Don't waste your time on that. Just like the news, you hear all this horrible stuff in the news media, oh, that's horrible. Well, yeah, can you do anything about it? Well, then quit watching it. We know there's horrible stuff. I don't have to be told that every single day there's horrible stuff in the world, but there are fantastic things that go in the world all the time. That's what I want to focus on. And that's the stuff that you're not going to see if you focus on the news media. So it's just like the serenity prayer. And if you really think about it, this really is good. And the serenity prayer, if you don't know it, it's God, give me the serenity to change. What is that? That's horrible.
To accept.
Yeah, God, give me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So huge. That is so huge, because if there are things that are happening that you're worried about and you have no control over them, please stop worrying. Worry is not going to do anything but throw you off course. If you can't change it, if you can't change the world, if you're going to go somewhere and it's like, oh my gosh, it's raining. Well, we can't do anything. This day sucks. If you planned ahead, you would say, okay, if it rains, we'll do this. If it doesn't rain, we'll do this. If a thought of rain is even in there, that way you don't say, well, this whole day is ruined. No, it doesn't. It just shifted to your other plan. So anyway, please be aware of the things that you cannot change, and do not sit there and waste valuable energy, valuable thoughts on things you cannot change, and put them all on the things that can change and the things that you want to change. So do you have any closing remarks, baby?
That's good.
So anyway, so that's all we had today. I know this one went long also, but the thoughts that you have are so important. And please do not think that just because you have the thought that it's true, because chances are it's not. Think about your goals, think about your why, think about your next steps, and change your environment now so you're around other people and other things that help you achieve that goal. So that's all we have today. And as always, thank you so much for listening. Have a fantastic week. And remember, always make simple, healthy choices to live a quality life. If you enjoyed this podcast, please hit the subscribe button below and be sure to tell someone else who may want to change their health path as well. And don't forget, you can also purchase my book, Your Plate is Your Fate, on Amazon or Audible. And if you do, please leave a review.